Hello, Eastview Scholars. Welcome to another edition of Sharp Shorts. This one's going to be on photosynthesis, which, as we know, is really what feeds the world, directly or indirectly. And let's remind ourselves of how things get food. Here are some delicious asparagus. Notice the green color of the chloroplast and stuff. Like all other plants, this makes its own food. It's an autotroph. It's a producer. It takes sunlight and uses it to make sugars. Okay? Me, I'm going to eat this. I'm going to enjoy this. It's going to be very tasty, but I cannot produce my own food. I'm a heterotroph. So that's the indirect portion is, or directly or indirectly, I eat this or I eat things that eat these things, and that's how I get my nourishment. So the producers make the food, the heterotrophs eat the food, and then there are some organisms like this mushroom, this fungi, that are decomposers, and they help then break down stuff so you have those basic raw nutrients again to use in the cycle of life. Now, I'm a fungi, but I don't decompose anything except student brain cells. Okay. So, and again, just a quick reminder, the importance of it is just that as it takes in sunlight, converts it to chemical energy, you can use that to make organic compounds and foods and sugars and stuff that the heterotrophs and the rest of us, and even the autotrophs themselves, can use. The bonus is they also produce oxygen for atmosphere. Okay. Now, there is the unbalanced basic formula. In your first look at it, it says, well, it's the reverse of cell respiration. Yes, it is, and it's a net thing, but it doesn't follow. It doesn't directly turn around cell respiration, go the other way. It does incorporate carbon dioxide. It does split water with the help of light. Really what are produced is not glucose molecules per se, but 3 carbon sugars that are the precursors that then get put together, and some oxygen. The mechanism is not well completely understood. What got us on our way to understanding that, if we balance this, that we would mix 6 carbon dioxide with a net 6 water, because you actually start with 12 water and you produce 6, so it's a net total of 6 water to make 1 glucose and 6 oxygen molecules. And we'll see why that becomes a net, because you do need the water to split to provide the electron replacement and stuff that goes in the photosystems. But understanding this mechanism, it was initially believed that what was split was the carbon dioxide right here. Split the carbon dioxide, stick a water on it, you got CH2O, the basic formula for sugars, carbohydrates. But that's not the reality of the situation. The carbon and the oxygen from carbon dioxide go into the glucose. The water, well, and some into the water. But the water splits to provide the hydrogen and the oxygen. So it's not the oxygen coming off the carbon dioxide, it's coming from the water. And that opened up then the mechanism of how it could work. And it works, in many respects, it is kind of the reverse of cell respiration. There is an electron transport chain that you start with, and then there's a cycle after. Whereas in cell respiration, you start with the cycle, then you use the electron transport chain. It is a redox reaction. There is oxidation and reduction. And what you can see here is with the input of energy, because it is energonic, you are anabolically producing a larger molecule. It does require energy. It is energonic. What you can see here is you are reducing the carbon dioxide to glucose, but you are oxidizing the water into oxygen in its basic sense. So it is, just like cell respiration, a redox reaction. And then again, when you get to the electron transport chain that we'll see in our next film on photosystems, is that's a great use then of using oxidizing and reducing agents to use the energy from an excited electron in the chloroplast to drive the rest of the process. Okay, there's 2 parts of it: the light reaction and the Calvin cycle. They're also called light-dependent reactions and light-independent reactions, also known as light reactions. And Calvin cycle is often called the dark reaction. That's a bit of a misnomer because it doesn't have to occur in the dark. It just doesn't need light to drive it. But the Calvin cycle generally does run at the same time during light as the light reactions, because you need to use up the product that's being made. You can see what happens, the light reactions happen in the thylakoids, which are portions of the chloroplast. We'll see in a minute. They split the water, release oxygen, reduce, here's our reducing agent. It's the cousin of NAD+, NADP to NADPH, and then you can make ATP from photophosphorylation, which by its term is just phosphorylating ADP by the use of the sunlight. Okay. The light reactions occur in the chloroplast, the Kelvin cycle, and the stroma. And it begins with fixing carbon, just like in cell respiration where you had to fix acetyl-CoA into oxaloacetate. It occurs the same way. The question you have with plants having cell walls made of cellulose for protection and stuff is, how do water and carbon dioxide get in the plant? So you ask yourself the question, what's stomata? Well, here's stomata. Stomata are, and let's go here and see them here. Stomata are these little passageways that you can see underneath a leaf if you look, and that allows for not only carbon dioxide to get in, but oxygen to be released as it's being made. And of course the water comes in through veins that come up through the roots to provide the water needed. This mesophyll is the interior tissue layer of a leaf, where most of photosynthesis occurs because they're broad and have the chloroplast with that green color. And inside those mesophyll cells are the chloroplast. Those are the photoproducing. Here's the thylakoids. These are these stacked little light-absorbing, pigment-carrying thing that are stacked, and when they're stacked like that, they're called grana. Those are the location of the photo portion of photosynthesis itself. Okay. Now, chloroplasts are very much like mitochondria, believed to have evolved in an endosymbiotic way, just like mitochondria did, by being absorbed and becoming a part of it. And the same reason, as we looked at the endosymbiosis of mitochondria, notice that it doesn't look like the other organelles. It's got its own double-layered membrane, an outer membrane, an inner membrane space. In here is the stroma and the chloroplast, the thylakoids. Okay. Leaves are the major location. We covered that. The green color is from chlorophyll. Remember that light can act both as a wave and as particles properties, and we'll talk about that in a minute because that gives them their color and tells you what you can do with those. Chloroplasts are mainly found in the mesophyll, and each mesophyll can contain 30 to 40. You have three things you can do with light. You can reflect it, you can transmit it, or you can absorb it. If you can absorb it, you're a pigment. Okay. Chlorophyll A is the main photosynthetic pigment that we'll see in the photosystem. It absorbs light in that kind of blue-violet, which is the best range. But you also have accessory pigments like chlorophyll B and carotenoids that allow for expansion of the light that can be absorbed, the different wavelengths and the different colors. Obviously, green is not very good for photosynthesis because it is reflected and transmitted through. But this gives you a broader variety. And the carotenoids, which are after carrots, are the orange kind of reddish colors, also have a main role in helping protect damage if there's excessive light. And they have processes to relieve the excess of light so it's not triggering things that will damage the cells. Okay. There's our chlorophyll molecule. This is chlorophyll A. You can see a big hydrocarbon hydrophobic region of the chain, and then a big porphyrin ring, not unlike a porphyrin ring in U and hemoglobin, except notice it's magnesium binding, and U what binds is iron to catch and release oxygen, bind and release oxygen. But the big thing is this is your main pigment. This is one of your accessory pigments that broadens the visible spectrum, and you can see that they differ only in a methyl group, okay, versus a functional group with an oxygen on it. That's all. But it does then give them the variety to absorb different wavelengths of light. And this is what we're talking about. Here's the chloroplast, here's the thylakoids. You can see the light coming in. Of course, light is, if you put it through a prism, you can see the different light wavelengths split out. You can see here reflecting green. That's why it looks green. It's transmitting it straight through also. What's getting happen here is chlorophyll A here is absorbing the violet, blue, red stuff, and some chlorophyll B there too. And here would be carotenoid work with some of the red, orange, and stuff too. But that's being absorbed by the pigments. Okay. So how does it really work? Well, it's like anything. When you bring that photon of energy from the sun, it's going to excite an electron in the chlorophyll molecule, say chlorophyll A, and it is going to jump up in an excited state to a higher potential energy level. And as it would with any valence electrons in chemistry that you remember talking about, it can only stay there about a billionth of a second before it's going to release that energy and go back to its ground state, releasing it both as heat, and it can release it also as a photon, a fluorescent photon. What you can see here is the reddish color released from chlorophyll A. If you were to isolate it out of the chloroplast by itself and just zap it with energy, you can see that what it does is release a red orangish color. The process behind this, which we're going to see next in our next films, is this is again the start of photosynthesis. Absorb that photon, get it excited, but instead of just having it drop its energy, have that go through an electron transport chain through a bunch of oxidation reduction reactions with things that get increasingly electronegative as they go down. And you can use that energy to drive the process as opposed to having that one-off loss of energy and heat. Not unlike we talked about with cell respiration, where you would do the same thing, break down in manageable bits so you don't have this great loss of energy. Anyhow, that's our general photosynthesis overview. Our next films will break it down into its different photosystems and cycles. But for this point now, scholar on, Eastview.